Okay, hello everyone, and a warm welcome to, it's the second Women Plus Water lecture for 2023 already. I want to begin by acknowledging that we all participate today from traditional territories of First Peoples. And I'm actually joining you from Manhattan in New York City today, which is the traditional Lenape homeland. And the University of Saskatchewan is located on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. And the university is committed to honoring and supporting Indigenous peoples, cultures, values, languages that belong to the land. We're talking Women Plus Water today, and water is the lifeblood of people and societies, and it connects us. And we pay our respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of the Saskatoon region and reaffirm our relationships not only with one another, but also with the land and waters that are so essential to our health and well-being. I invite those of you joining from other territories today to reflect on and to recognize the lands and waters that you call home, and to set an intention to have a productive and positive discussion today. For those of you who don't already know me, I'm Corinne Schuster-Wallace. I'm a water health researcher at the University of Saskatchewan. I'm also Associate Director of Global Water Futures and the creator of the Women Plus Water. Today is a very exciting Women Plus Water lecture. It's on women water networks as a catalyst for change, and it's exciting not only because of the wonderful people that we have to share their stories and experiences with us today, but also because the lecture is in honor of the United Nations International Day for Women and Girls in Science, which is on the theme of bringing everyone forward for sustainable and equitable development. The official day is the 11th of February, but obviously that's the weekend, so formal events will be happening tomorrow, Friday the 10th. And on that note, please join us tomorrow in the United Nations General Assembly. We'll be sharing a very exciting Women Plus Water announcement, and you can attend online by registering through the link that was just posted in the chat. So today's topic really couldn't be more fitting to explore how women's water networks can uplift each other, accelerate our collective impact towards gender equity in water research, water management, and also, and perhaps most importantly, water access globally. So having said that, I'd like to pass over to Dr. Andrea Rowe, our Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Specialist for Global Water Futures and the Global Institute for Water Security at the University of Saskatchewan. And she will introduce today's panel. Andrea.
Thank you, Corinne. And I'd just like to begin with a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Today's event will be approximately 1 hour and the participants will remain muted, but you're more than welcome to put comments and questions into the chat. And we will have about 10 minutes at the end to answer the questions. In addition, if you would like to listen in French, please press on the globe-shaped interpretation button and you can listen to the French channel. And closed captioning in English is also available by clicking on the more icons at the bottom right-hand section of the screen, and you will be able to enable the captioning option there. We'd also like to just recognize our sponsors, Global Water Futures, the Global Water Futures Young Professionals, and the Global Institute for Water Security for their support in making this series a reality. And especially we'd like to acknowledge the young professionals that are watching today from University of Saskatchewan, Laurier, McMaster, and Waterloo. So welcome to everyone who's attending online. And I'm delighted to provide a brief introduction of our host, Dr. Leila Eamen, guests Dr. Lee, Dr. Ellen Wohl, and Jennifer Mandeville. And please do check out their full biographies on our website, as I can't do them justice in this short time. Dr. Leila Eamen, our host for today, is a postdoctoral researcher at the Global Institute for Water Security at the University of Saskatchewan. Her research is focused on exploring interdisciplinary and integrated frameworks to support decision makers in governing water resources in the face of changing future conditions. She brings her experience from working for over 15 years as a practitioner in water resource management in semi-arid regions to academia to move towards bridging the gap between science and practice in water governance. Our first guest, Dr. Lee, is the Barry and Shirley Izette Professor in Environmental Engineering at Penn State. She received a bachelor's and master's degree in environmental chemistry from Nanjing University in China and a doctoral degree in environmental engineering and water resources from Princeton University. She worked at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory as a postdoc and as a research scientist before joining faculty at Penn State in 2009. Her group asks questions on how external drivers and internal watershed structure regulate water flow paths, biogeochemical processes, and river water chemistry under diverse climate, geology, and land use conditions. She's active in the critical zone community and collaborates broadly with biogeochemists, hydrologists, ecologists, and geologists. Our second guest is Dr. Ellen Wohl. Ellen Wohl received a Bachelor of Science in Geology from Arizona State University and a PhD in Geosciences from the University of Arizona. She's a professor at the Department of Geosciences at Colorado State University, and her research focuses on physical processes and forms in river channels and floodplains and how these interact with biogeochemistry and ecological and human communities. She has conducted fieldwork on every continent except Antarctica and written numerous science books for non-specialists. The most recent is Deadwood, The Afterlife of Trees. And finally, our last guest is Jennifer Mandeville. Jennifer Mandeville is the Swarovski Water School USA coordinator and an environmental educator. Jen's passion for protecting water resources began as a child, growing up on the ocean. It became her professional focus while serving in the Peace Corps in Benin and working on hygiene projects. Jen has worked with a variety of NGOs as a researcher and water educator. In her free time, Jen is on the water, swimming, kayaking, and paddleboarding. So welcome, everyone. This is going to be a great panel, and we're really looking forward to this discussion. So I'll pass it over to you, Leila, and you can invite the guests to share a little bit about their work.
Thank you very much, Andrea. And hello, everyone. I think I'll start with a very brief introduction to my own research and then pass the floor on to our guests to give their presentations and or introductions about their work, and then we can jump right into the questions and start the discussion. So as Andrea kindly mentioned, I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the Global Institute for Water Security at the University of Saskatchewan, and my research is currently focused on understanding the importance between complex human and natural systems, particularly multi-jurisdictional and transboundary river basins. So I'm working on comprehensive modeling frameworks that can support decision-making by providing insight into the consequences of alternative water management policies, or evaluate the impacts of external drivers such as climate change, socioeconomic developments, and so on, from different perspectives on these complex systems. By combining my academic knowledge and years of experience as a practitioner, I'm trying to advocate integrated water resources management, which opposes the fragmented river basin management practice that is usually adopted in multi-jurisdictional river basins. And I'm, in doing so, trying to bring together not only different disciplines like hydrology, economics, so on, but also connect various parts of the river basin to develop frameworks that can help us manage our shared and limited water resources more sustainably and efficiently, especially in the face of highly uncertain futures. And my connections to women water networks. So I've been part of the Women Plus Water Advisory Panel for a while now, and I enjoyed every moment of my collaboration with Corinne, Andrea, and all other Women Plus Water organizers and advisory panel members. So I would like to take this opportunity here to thank them all for making this happen. And today I'm honored to be your host in this session of the Women Plus Water lecture series, which is in honor of the United Nations International Day for Women and Girls in Science. I'm very excited to hear our wonderful guests' thoughts and experiences on women water networks and their role as catalysts for change. So I'll pass on the floor right away to our guests. And as I see Ellen first on my screen, so Ellen, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you. Although Lily, do you want to share your screen and put the image up that we were talking about? I have been involved with Lily in co-organizing an online seminar series that we call Women Advancing River Research. And this came out of the recognition that COVID, with all the horrible things that it created for us, also presented an opportunity to have online seminars that could be attended in real time or listened to as recordings by people around the world if they have sufficient internet connectivity. So this is, we're just starting the third year of this seminar series, and it's been very successful. I think we started with focusing on established women who were more senior in their career. And since the second and third years, we've been pairing early career women with more established women. And we've gotten a lot of nice feedback. Of course, we have men and women attending these online. So I think it's helped to raise the profile, particularly of some of the early career researchers. And the other thing I would say in terms of women water networks, I've been engaged in more personal contact networks where groups of us get together at professional conferences that we would be attending anyway, such as the American Geophysical Union or the Geological Society of America in my case. And we've had just social events, like a cocktail hour or something at the end of the technical presentations. And it's been very nice for networking and talking to each other about everything from some of the challenges we face to what we can do to support one another. So I think I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, Ellen. So I guess Lily, you can go next.
Sure.
As you have your slide.
So I'm going to be brief, just advertising for this. This is our lineup for 2023. In this series, as Ellen mentioned, it started in 2021, and I think it was more thinking about, there was she gave a talk in 2020 September, and there was more than 300 participants and really active question and answer sessions, and recognize the opportunity of online presentation that can interact, essentially across space and time from different continents. We actually had participants from, I think, all continents except Arctic and Antarctic. We kept waiting, Ellen, to someone show up. But it's really, it's well attended. And this year is going to be, again, happen each third Thursday every month, 11 a.m. US Eastern time. So you actually can Google, Women Advancing River Research, and that webpage will show up. You can register once and choose the talks you would like to attend. So this is, I will just leave it here, right here.
Thank you very much, Lily. And I just want to mention that the link to 2023 Women Advancing River Research Seminar Series is now in the chat. So if people are interested, you can just click on that right away. And now, Jennifer, would you like to talk about your present?
Thanks, Leila. Yeah, hi, I'm Jen Mandeville. I'm so excited to be with this presentation today and share a little bit more about Swarovski Water School, which is a global water education program that aims to engage and empower youth and their communities with knowledge and resources to address global water challenges like sanitation, hygiene, and access to clean water. And through our work, we naturally create a lot of water networks. We have water schools in 8 countries, as shown on my slide. And the countries were selected because they're along the world's major rivers. We are working on the Amazon, the Nile, Nile, the Mississippi here in the US, the Danube, the Yangtze, the Ganges, Amazon, the Chao Phraya, and the Pramada in Thailand. And we aim to support several of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, most essentially number 6, which is water and sanitation, but of course, Sustainable Development Goal 5, gender equality, and 4, quality education are essential to our mission because we provide water education resources as well as support for local projects to improve access to clean water and hydrological infrastructure. And this work naturally creates networks both in communities, but globally as we connect the students in the water schools and the community members working with them across the globe. And I'll leave it there and look forward to hearing y'all's questions.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. So just a quick note that Swarovski's Water School link is also in the chat. So for people interested in exploring more about it. So I guess we can start with our questions because I'm so excited to hear your thoughts on that. So let's start with the first one. And it is, in your experience, who is most involved in women water networks? Is it early career researchers, or have you noticed any specific participation from certain geographic regions, so on? So I don't know, perhaps again, I start with Ellen, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just emphasize that my experience is colored by where I am. I'm in academia. I am research and teaching focused. So there are undoubtedly a lot of other women in water networks that I'm not aware of. But my experience has been that there's more early career women involved in these efforts. And that's partly because there's more early career women than there are established women in academia in most countries around the world. The great news is there are a lot of women coming up through what's sometimes called the academic pipeline from graduate school into faculty positions. The less great news is that there aren't that many senior women, particularly once you leave certain parts of the world. So you asked about specific geographic regions. I see far more women in the research component of water in the United States and in Western Europe than I do in other regions of the world. And this, we talked about this seminar series that Leila and I co-organized. It was really difficult to find speakers from South America and Central America, for example, parts of South Asia, the other parts of Asia, so China, Japan, for example, and we have yet to find anyone from Africa, to be honest. So I think what's sometimes called the Western world or the global north or whatever you want to call it is much more well represented, certainly in research-oriented networks for water.
That's interesting. Thank you. And Lily, would you like to share your thoughts on this?
I would mostly echo what Ellen already said. We did a few polls, in different talks, and we see numbers. So mostly, the geographically, US and North America and Europe are the most well-attended region. And then there's usually a few, sometimes a few pop up from Africa, Asia, but also I think, from our poll, it kind of depends on the time because our 11 a.m. So in Asia, it's like midnight, especially Australia, it's very hard for them. But, there's this uneven distribution when we think about inviting speakers. We try to find someone in every continent, and it has been challenging with, try to identify people who can talk from Asia and Africa. We haven't been able to have speaker from Africa yet, and this is still on our kind of to-do list. one of the goal. Yeah.
I would just add one thing quickly. I just finished editing a special issue for a geomorphology journal called Earth Surface Processes and Landforms, and it's women in geomorphology. So I looked at 2021 and then papers contributed in 2022 to this special issue and took all the papers with a female lead author. And I plotted them on a global map, the locations of those lead authors. And that's just one journal in one discipline, but there's a few participants from Australia and New Zealand and from South America. Otherwise, it's North America and Europe. So it just reinforces what we've been saying.
Interesting. Thank you, Lily, and thank you again, Ellen. So Jennifer, would you like to share your experience on this?
Sure. Yes. Well, Lily, I feel you with those time change challenges. When we have our cross global meetings, yes, I join at 4 a.m. and my Australian counterpart is on at 11 p.m. or midnight. So we really understand what it takes to connect across the global sphere. And I hope, Ellen and Lily, that the work of the Water School starts to fill some of these global gaps. We've been very intentional about making sure that we have programming and support because we introduce students' communities to hydrological sciences and engineering at a very young age. And we see, depending on the nation, very strong presence of women in those spaces if the women are operating as educators. But even in my work in Peace Corps and the development work I did in Africa, women in those areas are more acutely aware of the challenges sometimes with sanitation and hygiene as they're the caregivers and the health workers of the community, whether it's formal healthcare, or just their role as the caregiver. And so they were always or often the first to bring to attention of how do we solve this engineering or this sanitation or hygiene challenge. So we really are excited to hear that maybe we can start to fill these gaps and find you a speaker, Lily, a great African speaker who can speak on the hydrological sciences, because we work with students in primary and secondary school and beyond. One of the best Water School USA stories we have is we had students who did our Camp Water School, which is a high school experience to really understand field research in the hydrological sciences. And now one of those water schoolers are back at our field station as an REU intern, which is an undergraduate research experience. So we're really having fun seeing the pipeline and network that the Water School is creating. But I think there will be, I think in the coming decades, more and more global women working on water. And hopefully through the Water School program, we'll keep growing that pipeline to you higher ed folks.
That's cool. When we start to think about 2024, I'll contact you and see if you have names to suggest.
That's awesome. And that's very interesting because our next question is somehow built on this discussion that we already had. And it is about the absent voice. So who is absent from Women Water Networks? I mean, all three of you have touched on those. In your answers to the first one, but maybe more organized way of just putting that. And then more importantly, how can we make them more diverse, these networks more diverse? So I'd like to hear your opinion on this one particularly. So maybe I'll let you go on, Jennifer, with that, because I guess we have some, you touched on even that's diverse, making the networks more diverse briefly in your discussion. So.
Yeah, I think, we can always, just as we've all spoken about, increasing global representation and networks. And I think that's what is great about the Water School global multinational approach. But also recognizing that there's value in both traditional ecological knowledge and scientific ecological knowledge. I think it's important to increase the number of traditional knowledge holders, particularly as we face increasing water shortages, and that traditional knowledge may help bring the engineering or a lasting solution out of that space. And, by working directly with local communities, Water School does a great job providing the opportunity to learn and hear from those who best understand their water challenges. Water School Australia is extremely proud of the intentionality they created to include Indigenous people, and particularly the aunties of those communities, as mentors and resources for these students. So I would really encourage us to think broadly about where are the knowledge holders and how do we bring them into what we think of as like the formal knowledge space, if you will.
Great. Yeah, that's absolutely, that makes sense, to look for different sources of knowledge. Absolutely. So Lily, would you like to go on next?
Sure. I had always thought the numbers really matter. I was in different departments, and there was, my older department was previous department was 3 women out of maybe 31, 32 overall number of faculty. And then I joined a new department which has about 10 out of 30, so similar number of total faculty number. And you can just sense the total number, the culture change, you know, you can feel the network, a sense of community. So I think, you know, it's really important to have the critical mass, enough number for, you know, for women to hold hands, to help each other, and not necessarily just in the department, but also like in terms of collaborations, writing proposals. I realized most of my collaborators, probably 70–80% of my collaborators are women. So imagine, you know, we don't have this number of women in my field. It's very hard for me to imagine how things will work out from my end. So I think is number is important. That's what I want to emphasize. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too. You're right. I mean, perhaps, I mean, it's women water networks, right? So it should include more women in it for sure, and that's including all type of organizations in research or practice, whatever we're dealing with. And Ellen, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I've participated in women and water related workshops in Central and South America and in Africa. And I think the work that you're doing, Jen, is absolutely critical in making girls at various ages aware of this potential. But one of the things I saw was that there are women who are doing very important, I guess I'd say, applied work. You know, they're working on water quality, water treatment, in some cases environmental protection at various levels. So different types of government administrative levels, whatever country it is, you know, the equivalent of a state or city. What I see as someone in academic research is that the women are not getting through in many countries to academic positions, and that is a function of very entrenched attitudes in the research communities in those countries. Again, that's where I think the US and Europe are different. That's where they were in the past, but those attitudes are still there. I have some close colleagues I work with who have PhDs. I won't name countries, but in other countries, and they cannot get an academic position. They'll be invited for an interview, and then they don't make it to the next stage. And I know it's not because they're not talented. So I don't want to say this to be discouraging, but I think we can complain and we can show that women can do it from other countries, but we have got to have others working with us. We need men working with us. And I know there are many men who feel strongly about this as well and want to work with us. But so getting back to who's absent, again, focusing on the research community, I see a lot of women and girls who are very talented, and they get to a certain point and they can't go beyond that. And we as a community in places where the situation is better, it's not perfect, but the US and Western Europe, we can set examples and say, oh, look how vibrant our research community is because it's more diverse and not just women and men, but diverse in all ways. And we can try and increase the awareness of that and the importance. There are so many studies that show if you have a diverse workforce, it's more creative, it's more productive. I don't know what else we can do except just keep beating that drum because it's still not being heard in some places.
Yeah, actually, I understand what you're saying. I mean, from my personal experience. So I come from a region where specifically everything, but specifically engineering field is a male-oriented field. So as a woman who tries to make her own way, I mean, in this field. So I really feel that there is somehow there are so many obstacles, not to mention blocks, but then so many obstacles if one wants to make their own way, and they are not define themselves as male, identify themselves as male. So let alone other gender types, because even women, which are, I mean, somehow perhaps one of the well-established genders, they cannot make their own way. So in those regions. So anyway, so I really can relate to what you said, Ellen, and it's really important to just think about all that. And I hope that one day we reach to a point when we can sit there and say, okay, we've done something really marvelous. And this is only a start. And I just I congratulate you all for your efforts on all these fabulous things. So this brings me to the next question, which is how can participation in women water networks be strengthened to create real lasting outcomes? So could it be through new research collaborations or community programs? Lily, I would like to start with you this time. What's your opinion on that?
I think so. The Women Advancing River Research Seminar Series. We have women scientists give talks, and so in a way, there's examples there, like Aaron said, the women being very established to really great science. I think Ellen and I, there's another German professor involved, Dorothy Tedros. We were talking about this more like community building activity, having, for example, panelists, similar like here, and then everyone share some of their own experience, and maybe have breakout sessions, have, in different rooms, different people talk about their own experience to kind of strengthen this shared women in science experience. Because sometimes, when you, especially in places there's not a lot of women, sometimes you feel very isolated, or you feel it's just me, right? So I think it's this, we share a lot of common experience, and having that shared experience, talking it out to others, realize, oh, it's not just me. We have all been said to a lot of no's. Right? So I think that could, we are still talking about, sometimes we are hoping this will happen at some point. But the shared experience, and I think these activities would lead to things like collaboration, writing proposals, and more working together, realize shared expertise or different expertise and how they can work together. So I'm hoping this is something that could happen at some point when we have more energy and time. Yeah, I think this will be very important to do as another dimension of women networking. Yeah.
Excellent. Yes, I agree totally with you. And Ellen, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'd say two things. Do a search online. For example, there's something called the Earth Science Women's Network that some of my recent PhD students are participating in. It's not restricted to academics, although it does focus on teaching and research. That's a very vibrant online community. They support each other a lot. And there are other early career networks that are specific to my discipline, but I would be surprised if they don't exist for other disciplines. And if you can't find something, reach out to someone who is more senior to you in whatever aspect of water you're working in. There will be some, I suppose, who might not be very receptive or helpful, but I bet the vast majority of particularly women, senior or more advanced in their career with women you would reach out to would be very supportive and helpful, because we've all been through a little bit of a grinder and had some unpleasant experiences. And most women who have advanced in their careers will go out of their way to help junior women. And so it's not just academia, it's government in various aspects. I'm running out of categories, but I think the point is identify someone who's a little more senior than you and reach out, ask questions. They can only say no, and then you can reach out to someone else, and hopefully they'll say yes and be very helpful.
Thank you. That's awesome. Yes, you're right. And Jennifer, would you like to share your opinion?
Yeah, I want to kind of build on Lily's thoughts about community building activities and kind of this community-centered space. And so speaking from my experience, which is working with, primary and secondary students, most water schools have some kind of culminating experience, which is either an idea share, a student teaching student share, a research fair, or a water festival that the students organize that allows each of those water school students to bring their work together and learn from each other. And water school is a co-ed experience. It's not just women. And so, the hope there is that we're starting early, male career and female career scientists realize there's value in, space and collaboration for them. But I think learning how to present and communicate about science, build these skills early, right? If we're practicing them in our young space, and they're going to use those skills throughout their careers. And the culminating, we always hear from the students that this culminating experience to come together, because they come together either at a district level or a province level, or sometimes national, depending on how the country is organized. The program, is an opportunity to connect and learn already at like middle school, ages 10 through 12 to 14 age, they're coming together and starting to build their network and support group. And we always are really intentional about bringing them back together, whether it's, digitally, virtually, or back and present, because we've heard that it helps them persist in STEM fields, both men and women. But it's critical, kind of what Ellen is saying, is to find your STEM sisters and your water-wise women, to help you persist. And we think, hopefully that all the work that educators do in the primary and secondary space to introduce women to these concepts helps strengthen that pipeline to appropriate training and education, but also really shows them to kind of do what Leila and Ellen are saying early on and build those networks, find those STEM sisters, and hang with them and keep building that network. So I think, yes, these community building activities in these places where you see like-minded people persisting together and realizing you're not struggling on your own, or that your experience isn't an isolated experience, I think can build resiliency and persistence.
Exactly. Yes. So these are brilliant discussions, and I can detect some points that are somehow answering parts of the next question, but I'm going to ask that one anyway. So do you have any advice for people who would like to become involved in women water networks? So how can people access support to help grow in these networks and communities they are already involved in, for example, through university support, private sector, community engagement again. So for this one, I just let you start. Feel free to just start, whoever wants to go on first.
That's always the awkward silence. Okay, I'll take a stab at it. So in addition to what I've suggested of doing a search online, if you're not aware of things, and talking to more established women in your particular area of research, the other thing I'd suggest is think about starting your own if you can't find anything. Several years ago, a group of early career women in my discipline sent out a sort of a broadcast email before a professional conference, the American Geophysical Union, and said, hey, let's get together, just have a happy hour during this meeting. And several very nice things came out of that. It was really fun. A bunch of us got together for an hour and chatted and brainstormed. And so if you can't find what you're looking for, see about creating your own.
Perfect. Yeah, cannot agree more. Lily and Jennifer, is anything you want to add?
I can say, another dimension, if we think about in science, we like the fact of women inviting women in proposals a lot of time, right? I have seen proposals being written, have 10 PIs, just no woman in it. So it's just heartening in a lot of ways. But I think we can also, think about it, build on what Ellen said. We don't have to be invited. You can invite as a people to initiate, to do things that can help us as a community. So love to see this happen more often. And again, this would build on people in the community and have do more initiative, because eventually the number will grow and through these. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And Jen, do you want to add?
I'm going to take the question in kind of a different framework, if that's okay. I think, I just think giving to your community in, if you're not a woman or you're an organization, just looking for community partners who are willing to raise their hand and provide opportunities for students, for women, whether it's a field trip to a drinking water facility, an internship, a learning opportunity, or personally for water school, we're always looking for community members who want to be trained water school educators. It doesn't have to be just the teachers, right, or the traditional educators, but I think big picture, any work that secures access to clean drinking and water and promotes girls' education helps more girls persist and come through that pipeline. And so I think any work that's being done to kind of help with some of those basic needs, you're contributing to women in water networks, and you may not realize it, but I think it's important to know and to connect the challenge for girls to persist in STEM and education if they don't have access to clean water and sanitation in some traditional communities. And for corporations, since I am here as part of the Swarovski Foundation, I'll just say supporting these networks so that security and funding is critical. It allows for long-term planning and permanence. So yes, go and find your own, but for working with a corporation, anyone with a corporate giving program, looking for opportunities to support women and women's networks is critical to their persistence and the ability for very busy researchers like Ellen and Lily to have some help. So I'll come from my foundation side of my heart and say that as well.
Thank you. Yes, that was an interesting perspective too, indeed. So just to let everyone know, there are some resources for women in STEM links to them added to the chat. So if you're interested in exploring them further. So that's awesome. I guess that's all questions that I have for today. So if there is any last thought or final comment or something anyone wants to make, otherwise yeah.
I'll just add one thing. A few years ago I gave a brief talk at a conference that was resonated with people. This is in some ways a very US centric example, but there's an old Disney movie, Cinderella, that came out when I was growing up, and Cinderella had a fairy godmother who did things for her. And the point I made was that no one is too junior to be a fairy godmother. So if you think about how you can help other women and girls, you could be a fairy godmother.
Excellent. I really like that one. Thank you, Ellen.
Or a fairy godfather. We all need fairy godparents.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you all for this wonderful discussion. And I think with that, we can now get back to you, Andrea, for the rest of the discussion or Q&A, perhaps.
Yes, thank you so much for your insights. It's really interesting to see your different perspectives. And we do have a couple of questions in the chat here. And the first is, as this group grows, and I'm going to pose this to everyone for Women Plus Water, but also for Swarovski Water School and the Women in Rivers Network.
I think, Andrea, we lost your voice. And oh, okay. Your connection, I suppose.
I apologize. My connection is not strong. Maybe I'll stop my video and can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. The question is just about, as you've kind of touched upon there, how to become more involved, and are there going to be local chapters of any of these groups from Canada? So is it possible, Jen, to participate in Swarovski Water School from Canada?
Yes, we're on the Mississippi River and we cover the entire Mississippi River watershed. And if you really look at the expanded part of the watershed, we, don't quite reach into Canada, but have plenty of opportunities to continue this watershed level thinking of what happens on our land comes downstream. And yes, so there would be good opportunities for Canadians to participate.
And Ellen and Lily, we know that you have some Canadians already in the Women in Rivers, particularly two folks associated with Global Water Futures, Dr. Sherry Westbrook and Nandita Basu, although speaking next year. But it's your participation is open to anyone from Canada as well.
Yeah, anyone can tune into these seminars, so it's absolutely completely open.
Yeah. And the videos are recorded, like if someone cannot, the time doesn't work, all the videos are recorded and archived, so you can go back to the website and watch again. It's later in another different time. Yeah.
Lily, thanks for that reminder. Yes, so Andrew, to add to my answer, all of the water school educational materials at least are available on our website too, so you can access them there. Thanks.
And from the Women Plus Water side, rather than local chapters at the moment, we're building this expert list, and you're welcome to register your interest in participating on the Women Plus Water website. And we're hoping to create lots of different kinds of opportunities for people to engage. Our first step is building the list, and then of course the second step is going to be getting people to be connected to opportunities of interest. And part of that is also going to be mentorship circles, and we're hoping to engage people in mentorship in ways that are of interest to them. And so part of it is building that community of experts to know who's there and who's interested in what. There's lots of ways on the list to indicate what you want to be involved in, what's of interest to you, and then hopefully bringing people together around areas of interest that might be geographic, or it might just be a common academic interest or community interest, and you can connect online. So that's something that we're working on. And there's just another couple of questions here from Marissa. At the Community of Women in Water, our founder, Catherine, created a WhatsApp group in Spanish, which I'm coordinating, but the language has not been the main issue. We realized and felt underrepresented in the UN conference as water women in Latin America. So we presented a side event proposal. We're participating as co-conveners at the non-official events at the GIZ is calling for women. And so I guess that's another question, is sort of how to engage in these high level discussions at something like the UN and whatnot. Have you had experience in doing that, and what have you found to be effective in becoming more involved?
I have not, so I can't answer that one.
Me neither. But I'm teaching so remotely related. I'm teaching energy use, CO2 emission, and water use course, and I'm trying to put some of these in the UN debate format in my class for students to participate. So I might have, at the end of the semester, I might have more to say, but right now don't know much about it yet.
I guess this has nothing to do with the UN, but the one thing I would say is that I've been invited to teach short courses or give seminars at multiple countries in South America, and I think that does help to present a role model for women in the academic community in those countries.
Well, and certainly I think that's something that one of the reasons we were excited to host this particular conversation today is because we're all probably very small groups of people working in these spaces, and in Women of Water, it's a very small group. And so we're trying to think about ways that connecting together, we can potentially do more than we could alone. So I think that's a very important point that's raised, that it's really wonderful to start your own and do your own thing, and then to start to branch out from there is what we're hoping as well, to connect each other to do a little bit more. And I believe Corin is going to jump into the conversation now. I'll just mute myself.
Apologies for inserting myself, but as I'm in New York and we will be going to the UN tomorrow, I thought that it would behove me to share a little bit of insight on the UN processes, because there is a major group of women and there is UN Women. And there's been a lot of work by a lot of networks, including Women Plus Water, the Royal Academies of Science International Trust, who has sponsored and got the Women and Girls in Science Day recognized by the UN. And so there are definitely mechanisms, but you're right. And it goes back to what everybody has said, and particularly Ellen, when you were saying about not finding experts and not being able to connect experts and on some of these continents for whatever reason. And so there definitely is a challenge, but it is part of what we're there is a larger movement then, and there's this network of networks that can combine and really push towards the increased voice of women in the UN system and at UN events. So I encourage you to, again, reach out, take some of the advice that you've heard today, and keep trying.
No, I think that's incredibly good advice. And yes, we're looking forward to sharing more information tomorrow about the Women Plus Water expert list, and it will become public, and you'll be able to search it and to see what is there, and consider submitting your own profile if you haven't already. And so if we don't have any other questions or comments, I think we'll leave it there for now. And I'll thank everyone for attending today's event. And our next event will be on March the 9th, 2023 on flood warnings, maps, water models, and tools in practice with our host, Dr. Chandra Rajulapati, and guest Dr. Tricia Stadnik and Dr. Monri from RASI. And you can register for that event also on the Global Water Futures website. And so one of our traditions is that we always have an opportunity for the young professionals to stay on and do some networking and ask some career development questions with our guests and hosts if they're able to stay on for a few more minutes. So we'll just ask those of you who are just attending the event to log off now, and Stacy will transition us over to the format where you'll be able to unmute yourself and to ask questions if you're a young professional. Take advantage of this opportunity to ask our guests and hosts any career development questions that you might have as you try and advance your own career in water. So just as Stacy is switching the format over here, I would just like to thank everyone who is part of putting on Women in Water: Stacy Demansky, Fred Ryben, of course, Corin Schuster-Wallace, and Yolande Chason, and National Captioning Canada for the technical support. And we look forward to hearing what the young professionals have to ask you about your own paths, because I'm sure there's much more that we could say about how to advance as a woman in water.
As we transition, I'll leave, but I just wanted to thank all of you very much. It was fantastic conversation, and thank you, Andrea and Leila, for navigating that for us. It was wonderful. So I appreciate it, and I look forward to continuing the connections and the network opportunities, and together we grow stronger. So thanks again, everyone, and bye.